Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the talk, think program that proves without a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. And this is on our series called Menticide. And as you know, menticide is the destruction of a group's or person's mind with the ultimate goal, destruction. I'm sorry, I was just something happened on the broadcast on Facebook. Uh, Sorry about that. Okay. I was
Okay.
talking about menticide. Menticide is the
Mhm.
destruction of a person or group's mind, with the ultimate goal being destruction of that person or group. And some of the stuff we see in the community, and I don't want you to think it's just the stuff we see on TV. Like we just saw the young lady getting beat up in New York City. I don't want you to think it's just that, um, because it goes a lot deeper than that. And this is stuff, kind of some of the stuff we don't want to talk about because I think so many of us are so knee deep in it that we just think it's, the normal way of life. When you see we're getting jammed on all corners. Tonight, I'm gonna have a guest, sister. When you see the sister that I'm talking about, you've met her before, but she's gonna talk about how she grew up. She grew up on the other side of the tracks. Y'all know I'm gonna let her explain it. And you're gonna see where we pick up a lot of stuff that we do as a group of people. Because as I said before, the African American is not an organic person. And what I mean by organic, the African American is not from the soil. The African American is a clone of black people who are clones of Negroes, who are clones of color. You get the point. And so if the first person that can tell me what that noise is in the back, the first person who can tell me that, I'll send them a free ebook of African Americans Ain't Africans. That noise.
The
Uh,
echo?
no, the noise, or what you're doing, the noise that you're making, and when doing
Oh,
what you're doing, because people should be able to pick up what you're doing because they made those noises. I mean, that's one of the ways that we connect ourselves back to the earth. Listen.
right,
Something you've done before, that sound should be in your memory bank. So what you're doing, what you're hearing, have they experienced that themselves before? And they should have, because you're doing something that
right,
a lot of us do.
right.
Um, so, Nicole, I'm just going to call you on a first name basis.
That's fine.
I know,
That's fine.
you know, but, can you introduce yourself to the audience? And audience, check this sister out. Check out
Okay.
how she comes up, and start paying attention to how we're brought up and how we think, and how we got to this point. Instead of, if somebody says something and you don't like it, it's not meant for you to like it, it's just meant for you. This is what's happening, that's going on around us. And if you see it, beware of it. Nicole, welcome to African Americans Ain't Africans.
Thank you. Well,
Uh,
let me tell. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us this evening.
Absolutely.
Um, when we go back in history, I think when indigenous people go back in history, it's good for us not to go back, 10,000 years. You know what I'm saying? Because so much
Right,
has changed in the past 5 years.
right,
10,000 years, 100,000 years is dumb. So one of the things that I like to do is like keep the history near so we can see it, touch it, and feel it, and we can also see and touch the people who are still here who lived that time. And I think that's an
Right.
excellent way to bring out the history.
Right.
Integration. So what I want to start. I mean, as far as back as I can know, as far back as I know, integration. That's all I heard coming up. That's all as a kid I was being part of,
Mhm.
caught up in it.
Mhm.
But I was brought up on the Negro side of town, where everybody I went to school with was black. Everybody
Mhm.
I went to school with was a Negro. Where I
Mhm.
lived, everybody was a nigga. That type.
Mhm.
But you had a whole different upbringing.
Yes, I did.
Share that with us, please. Introduce yourself
Um,
first. I'm sorry.
okay. Well, my name's Nicole. As you guys know, I'm also known as Infused Virgo. I'm the one who does the education about cannabis. Um, and it's kind of this is kind of leading up on how I got into that, but that's not important. But in regard to my upbringing, I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My family is from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Thomastown, to be exact, is where my grandmother was born. Um, she left the South in the early 40s, moved up to Wisconsin with my step grandfather, and proceeded to have her family and grow. I was born in 1969 in a Catholic hospital called St. Michael's. I was baptized Catholic at birth at a oh God, I can't remember, St. Benedict's parish in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My grandmother had been Baptist before that, but decided once John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King did their thing that she was going to take on being Catholic and change the whole family as the matriarch of the family. That's what she did. Um, my mom and my dad were married, lived upstairs above my grandmother. So I was in a duplex. So I was created in my grandma's house and basically almost born in my grandma's house. Um, Due to at that time I attribute it to black exploitation and a lot of things going on with the film industry and the big heroin thing. My dad got caught up in that drug game, the heroin game, using himself. My parents divorced, and my mom was a registered nurse, and she married a x-ray technician who was a Polish man. His family owned a lot of the pharmaceutical companies in Wisconsin. Their last name was Dietzig. Once they got married, somehow my last name became Dietzig. Um, Somehow my dad was kind of erased out of the picture because of the relationship that he and my mom had. I'm assuming, and at the time, I really attribute it to the fact that my mother wanted to make sure that I had a better life. Me being born a dark skinned child, um, I think because of her childhood, she assumed that my life would go the same way because of the things that happened to her growing up, but it really didn't. So when I was about 3 years old, we packed up and we moved to Honduras. My mom started a medical organization called Medic One with this man and a whole bunch of doctors at a hospital she worked at called Northwest General in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Um, we moved to Honduras after a hurricane, and we lived down there for a minute, and we ended up having to come back because my stepdad got into some type of trouble. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was a very promiscuous man, and he would often have little side flings and do things on the side of my mom that he shouldn't have. But this is a white man, so I guess that made it okay. But she accepted it, and that was pretty much their relationship. Um,
So
we
you
came
said
back to
she
Honduras.
accepted it.
She accepted it. She didn't leave him. She accepted it
She didn't
because
put his
I
clothes.
think
He didn't put his clothes outside.
nope. She didn't put his clothes outside. She didn't call the police on him. She didn't do none of that. She accepted it. In
Wow.
fact, it's interesting to me because my dad and my father locked my mom in the house I heard this story growing up, and it made me dislike my dad for a long time. But my dad locked my mom in the house supposedly while my grandfather was in the hospital, and beat my mother up. My great grandma was downstairs at the time and called my grandmother at the hospital, and they came back and had to stop the fighting because he literally was beating her up like she was a dude. I don't know what transpired. I've heard since I've gotten older things that my mom had done as well as things my dad had done, and I choose not to involve myself on that. But it was like, so there was a lot of domestic violence in the relationship with my mom and my dad. But my stepfather um was a very like I said, promiscuous man. My mom would be at work, and he had this room in the house, and this is I remember I was 3 because I'd be playing outside, with everybody, because where I lived at was a pretty integrated area. There were white kids, there were some black kids, and all so forth. So we all lived in this little commune of apartments, and so we were outside playing. And I remember going in the house, and they had this room, and he had this room in the back that was like fur and like padding and stuff like that. And there was this white chick who walked past in a 2-piece bikini. Somehow they ended up in there doing what adults do. And I told my mom. She worked across the street at the grocery store. My mom and her friend went across the street at the grocery store and confronted the lady. That was it. Confronted. That was it. And then it still ended up going to Honduras and doing all this stuff. There was never any change. She didn't get upset and leave him. She accepted it because I think in my mom's head that she felt like she would still have more opportunity by being married to this white man than she would have been married to my father and having to do with my father's stuff. Her
Can
relationship
I
with
ask a question real quick?
yeah. Uh-huh.
You hear a lot about swirling
Uh-huh.
and Negro bed wenches and
Mm-hmm.
blah 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 blah. Before you mentioned that your mother and father used to get into domestic violence, how
Mm-hmm.
much do you think that played a part on her going to the other side?
A huge part. A huge part, because she had been married to a black male, or a dark skinned male beforehand, and she and they divorced when she got married when she was 18. I'm sure she's gonna be really mad at me for telling our business, but either way, um, she was 18 and married, and that relationship didn't work out. That marriage ended up getting annulled. And so then she met my dad. And at first, from what I understand, they had a very good relationship. I don't know what changed. I couldn't tell you. But I think it had a big part of it, of doing of that, of her going to the other side. And even after the situation with my stepdad ended, they divorced when I was 9 or 10. She got involved with another white male, and she then had my sister. So it didn't, I don't know where people get this ideology where the white man is going to be better than the black man, or the Mexican man is going to be better than the black man, or the indigenous man. I don't understand, because the things that I got to witness were a different type of mental abuse. The things that I got, that I saw privy to, were different. Like, my stepdad worked with Larry Flint from Hustler magazine, big into porn, big, huge into porn. Um, he he didn't work. I don't know what he did. All I know is that he didn't work. My mom did, though. My mom worked as a nurse in the emergency room of a lot of hospitals across the nation once we came back from Honduras. My mom, even in Honduras, my mom was the one who was running things. My mom was the one who was delivering the babies and making sure the medicine got to people and going out and speaking to people. He kind of stood in the background a little bit. He helped her somewhat, but for the most part, it was my mom who did pretty much. She made that organization what it was. And when it fell, and when things didn't go through, I saw her change a little bit too. And as it progressed, and as things changed in her life, and she got into the different relationship with the next white man, she changed a little bit more. I mean, but besides that, so going back to the integration, is so because of having the white stepfather, somehow he ended up adopting me, and my name went from Nicole Allen, which is the last name of my father, to Nicole Dietzig. So here I am, It's a little chocolate baby going to school with the name Nicole Dietzig. And I'm not Polish by any means. Am I Polish? But I'm having an identity crisis as a child because I'm not understanding that I'm not Polish. So when people would ask me, well, where's your last name? It's Polish. Well, you're not Polish, but my daddy is Polish because I called this man daddy. I didn't talk to my father that much. I didn't really, after I was 3 or 4, I didn't see my dad that much until I was about 12. So I'm in schools. We're traveling around. We lived in Colorado. We lived in Arizona. We lived in Nevada for a while. We went back to California, and basically my childhood was spent in California up until their divorce. But so I went to schools in Palos Verdes. In fact, I lived up in the hills in Palos Verdes, and I had white babysitters that he would mess with. I had white friends. I did horseback riding. I did ballet. I did tap. I got to swim with dolphins. The stuff that you guys see white kids do. I was privy to do that because my stepdad was my caretaker because my mom was pretty much working all the time. But along with being my caretaker, he had a dark side. He was a pedophile. And his family knew it. His family told my mom, you really shouldn't continue your relationship with this man because he had molested one of his nieces. She didn't she didn't pay attention to
What?
that. Yes, she didn't pay attention to that. That was, oh well, so what? Yeah, I'm gonna go live my life type
You
deal.
lying? No, no, hold
No,
up, hold up. No, no,
yeah,
no. What?
yeah, yes. Yes. In fact, he told my mom and he left when I was 10. And I think honestly, the reason why he left my mom was because he didn't want to do this. Somewhere along the lines, I think he somehow had a little bit of a conscience, and also he had met someone else. But he left when I was 10. But he told my mom when I was about 9 that he would be teaching me about sexual intercourse when I was 13, that he would be the one who would show me how to perform. Yeah. He doesn't. He's deceased now. She, like I said, if she knew I was doing this, she'd probably be livid. And I honestly, it is what it is. But yeah, he was a very different type of man. He used to, I remember seeing him, there were these copper pictures that he used to draw, and they were a devil's face, but they were all naked women's bodies. Like the like her breast, her legs would be open, that'd be the horns, and the ears would be her legs being open, and the vagina would be the eyes. And he would draw this, like do a pressing with the copper, and then he would, whoever would order this picture, it would be sealed with a red seal and a weird looking stamp. So I know that he was into the occult and a little bit deeper in that, because around my house there were like things by Lester Crowley and different occultist books and things like that. I mean, my mom knew, but she was doing her life and living her best life. I was just the tag along at the time. But besides of that, living in that rural area, which I lived in, and being around a lot of other white kids, because there were really not a lot of black kids. It was, my friends are black. My friends weren't black, they were white. I had friends that were Japanese. I had friends that were wealthy Iranians, people from Czechoslovakia, political people who were seeking political refuge in America that were under other people's names, Italians who were hiding, who were put in witness protection programs. I had a lot of very interesting people that I knew, and got to go to their houses for dinner and hang out. And I used to always say, "Oh, you're such a cute little black girl," or because at that time it wasn't African American, it was black. So it was like, there was, "You're such a cute little black girl." And I remember as a child wanting to, during 1977, when the Olympics, when Dorothy Hamill had won the medals for ice skating, and I'd seen her hair, and I wanted my hair like that. I had long hair. I had that long, curly, native looking hair. And I remember his sister came out and cut all my hair off into an afro, mind you, after I asked this question. But I wanted my hair like Dorothy Hamill's, and I asked my mom, "Mom, why can't I get my hair like that? I want my haircut like that. Mom, mommy, I want my haircut like that." "You can't have your haircut like that." "Like, why?" "Well, you just can't." "But why?" "Well, you can't." So one day when she was gone, my stepdad was like, "You know why you can't have your haircut like that? Because your hair texture is different. That's why." Any question I wanted to ask about my ethnicity came from my stepdad. And him being a white man and having his issues, he would try to give me a better response than my mom did, because as I got to older and got to learn more about my mother and her background, I got to understand she grew up in the South. She grew up during the paper bag test. She grew up during the, oh, you so black, you ugly. And so I understood as I got older how it affected her mind. And she'll deny this. No, I'm proud to be black. No, you're not. No, you're not. You really aren't. And she had a big issue, I feel, with her complexion. And
Can I stop you for a minute? 'Cause
yeah,
I think this is a good time. We said we were going to talk about this
yeah,
later, but it's a
yeah,
perfect time because you brought it up. There,
yeah.
there's a video that's going viral of
Mhm,
this little sister
mhm,
who's getting her hair locked up, getting tightened
mhm,
up,
mhm.
and she's about 4 years old, and she
Yes.
tells her loctician, she says, "I'm ugly,"
Mhm.
and the little girl's cute as a button.
Yes, she
And she
is.
said and that just reminded me of that when you were saying that about how your mother grew up and you black and
Mhm.
blah blah blah.
Yeah.
How much? How I mean, is it? I mean, I know it's rampant. I know it's rampant, but
Mhm.
what is that doing to us psychologically?
Colorism is killing us, because when you have young indigenous men and young indigenous women who make fun of people who are dark skinned and make comments about their dark skin and want to make it seem like having more closer to white people. I can't even say Caucasian, because Caucasians are actually a race of people. So we can't even really call white people Caucasians, because the Caucasian race in Russia off of Georgia is viewed as being like us in Russia. So research it. It's all over Google. I've researched this. You can't really say that. But when you're taking a person and because they're dark skinned and you're making fun of them because they have the indigenous features, and you're belittling them because of that, it becomes mentally anguishing. Even Oprah Winfrey talked about, and I know we're not a big fan of Oprah, but she even talked about wishing that she was white because of the harassment that she would get because she was dark skinned. Because for some reason we've taken this ideology where being light is better, or being lighter is this, or this good hair thing and all of that other stuff. That's bullshit, and it's wrong to do, and we've inflicted that upon our children. And it's like when I was little, I didn't understand. And I remember when I went back to stay with my grandma, kids were teasing me. And I went back into my grandma's house, and it's interesting because my mom says that my grandma wasn't like this, but I was crying. My grandma was like, "If you don't stop crying," she said, "You know what light skinned people are these light skinned girls out here? She's gonna know how they're gonna look when they get older." She said, "But with the way they're acting, she's know what's gonna happen." She said, "Your dark skin is your honor." And she instilled that in me. And like once again, my mom said that my grandma wasn't that way, but for some reason, she was that way with me. And she gave me a sense of pride. And it's really interesting that she did that. But also, it comes from my stepdad, who was, like I said, a very twisted man. He still even talked about how pretty my skin was, that I didn't get that from my mom. And so when you have things like, you're too dark to do this, or you're so black, you're so ugly, you're so this and you're so that, and that's all you hear, then you start really believing that. And then you go, even if you go on YouTube and look up the doll test, where you have the little beautiful little indigenous children with beautiful dark skin picking the white doll because the white doll is pure and she's pretty and she's this and she's that, and we don't even take an accountability of what we're doing to these children. And then you come up with situations like that, where someone who's fixing her hair has to fix that because she's not getting that at home.
Wow. So your stepdad was telling you more about yourself than your own
Yeah.
mom.
Yes.
Okay. What about school life? When you were going to school.
Well,
I know.
when I was
Go ahead.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry. When I was going to school in the suburbs, going to school in the suburbs with white kids is very interesting when you're little, because for some reason little kids don't little 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they don't care. They just want to play. They don't care what you look like. Just want to play. I want to play. But around fifth grade is when people start noticing you're different than me. Wait a minute, you're black. Oh, you're Asian, or you're this. So they start separating themselves into cliques, and they start to make fun of, and the word nigger starts to come up a lot, or the bad black jokes, and the statements like, oh well, we're not talking about you but other black people, or the black people that live down there, but I came from down there. I'm one of those people. But me being who I was at that time, ha, that's so funny, ha. No, it wasn't funny. It was mentally damaging. It was confusing because you didn't know where you fit in. I went to a school in Duval, Washington called Tolt. Um, I was the only black person at that time in the school. I'll never forget it, ever in my whole entire life will I forget it. I was invited to go to a bond party, so I went. I was like, yeah, I got some friends. I'll go. Yeah, didn't matter that they
What
were
what's a
white
what's
friends.
a bond party?
A big bonfire party.
Okay, okay,
Bonfire.
okay.
Dude, the bonfire party was like no other I've ever seen. If anybody ever says how white women are pure and they don't do certain stuff, these white girls were drinking, completely drunk. I mean, drunk to the point that I had to walk them to my house where I lived at so they could get home. In the woods, having sex with boys, drinking beer, doing acid, doing cocaine, doing all kinds of stuff. That these are teenagers, 12, 13, 14, 15, out in the woods. I'm sitting there with one beer in my hand, kind of pouring it out because I want to appear like I'm cool, but I'm not. And then there was another black boy who was from somewhere else that had been adopted by a white family riding around on a motorcycle. And we ended up going home midnight. And I remember one of the girls was so drunk she tried to go upstairs to my mom's room. My mom was like looking at us because I knew I had a black mama. I'm not going home drunk. No, I'm not going home like that. I didn't dabble any of that because I had fear of my mother. And I remember going back to school the next day and they were talking about it and they were laughing about it. But these are young girls having sex in the woods on leaves, drunk. Drunk is don't know what. And their parents were like, "Oh, it's just a matter. It's just what they do. It's no problem. Yeah, we'd accept that." Until one of their daughters got killed in a car accident. But when I was going to the all-white school, they put nigger on my locker. They put horse manure in my locker. They somehow I got blamed for some weed that got found in the lunchroom, and they had to call my mom to the school. First time and last time my mother ever came to school, because she never came to parents teacher conferences or nothing like that to see what was going on, because it wasn't a problem for her. I was the only black kid, whatever. Adapt. But on the flip side, I appreciate having had the opportunity to do that because I got to see the sick and twisted side of these people. I mean, the things that they do behind closed doors, the way they treat each other, the things that white women sleeping with other people's husbands, in the same community, when they go trick or treating, going around with wine glasses, getting pissy drunk, pissing in the street, waking up, having orgies, just all kinds of things that you would be like, they do what? That yes, they do. The minor things that you see on the news where you see, oh, white man raped daughter, that's something that's prevalent. The pedophilia is a religion in the white community, and I don't care who thinks differently. I don't care who worships around the altar. Pedophilia is a thing that is very prevalent in the white community. They can pretend like it's not. It is. They know exactly what's going on. And when I was going to predominantly white schools and girls would get pregnant, they hide it. They'd make the girl go through the pregnancy and put the baby up for adoption. They didn't abort the baby. They put the baby for adoption to another white family. Drug use in schools, cocaine, acid, shrooms, LSD, prevalent all over the place. They make it seem like it's an issue in our community. No, kids young as 12, cocaine, smoking weed, doing mushrooms, smoking crack, smoking cocaine, um, drinking, bringing beer to school, smoking cigarettes behind school. That was everything they would do, everything, and they do it in front of their kids. They do it with their kids.
Well, one of the things is, what I noticed with them. One of the big things I noticed with them is that they think that they are, in the whole social order.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they're a part, they from us. They can look down on us and think they're
Mm-hmm.
higher, but they're really in a worse off position because they getting screwed and they don't even know it.
They don't even understand. They don't even understand that the social construct is to experiment on them first and then us. I mean, when it comes to certain things, like for example, like Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew is white people water. If you pay attention, white people drink Mountain Dew all the time. Mountain Dew, Marlboro cigarettes, staples of white society, especially poor white society, mid class white society. Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew.
What is it about Mountain Dew?
I have no idea what it is because it's nasty. But it's a staple drink. That's what that's one of their drinks. Now it's the Monster with the seven. Monster is like water as well. But when I was growing up, it was Mountain Dew or Pepsi.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember I had a birthday party. And most of my, once again, most of my friends were white. So I had a birthday party. So they came over the birthday party. My mom left us in the basement, smoking cigarettes, doing all that type of stuff. It wasn't until she found out that I had got a hold of some weed that she started limiting my friends because she didn't want me to turn out to be like my dad, who was a heroin addict.
So she thought marijuana was a gateway
Was a
drug.
gateway drug. But it was funny because she thought it was a gateway drug, but she smoked it herself.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it was in the drawer. It was in the drawer hid. You didn't want to know about where that was. And
Yeah,
it's just like,
I find that out. So was your mom big in the church?
no, my mom wasn't big into church. No, I have to be honest. She wasn't. We didn't go to church. She grew up in the Catholic Church, though, going to Catholic schools and stuff. So I think that was part of the reason why we weren't big into church. My mom was more of like, she used to go. I remember she used to go out, get dressed up, go out, do the 70s thing. She had a lot of doctor friends. And so that was her social group, were her doctor friends. And my stepdads were people who were in porn. I met Ron Jeremy when I was little. Hayapesha Lee, famous Native American porn star. Um, Larry Flint. Met a lot of people that worked in MGM Studios up in the big offices. My stepdad had a lot to do with the movie The Deep, where they were doing the diving, because my stepdad was involved in diving. And a man by the name of Roger Miklos. He's deceased now, but he was a treasure hunter. They used to go to Bermuda Triangle and dig treasures. So I got to see a lot of that. I got to see a lot of very, very, very wealthy white people. And that's the crazy thing about wealthy white people, is that you think that they go buy all the Nike and spend all their money on all of that name brand stuff. They give two fucks. They don't care. They'll go to Goodwill and go shopping.
They say that again.
They go to Goodwill and go shopping. They give two fucks. They do not spend their money on clothes and Coach bags and all that stuff. They look at us and go, "Huh, yeah, you're buying that shit," because they're not buying it unless they are in the public eye. If they're in the public eye and they're like movie stars or in the government, they get that stuff for half off or free. They don't spend their money on stuff like that. It's the consumer mindset, the lower echelon of people that look at that type of stuff. Very wealthy white people, and I've been around a lot of wealthy white people. They don't care. Investments, horses, animals, farmland, land, drugs, cocaine, importing, stocks, you name properties, especially properties in the inner city. Yeah, that's where they make their money off of our backs. And it's not just black people. I want you to understand, it's not just black people or indigenous people that they make their money off of. They make their money off of the lower mindset of white people too. They
Right.
don't give a fuck if they have a lot of money. They don't care. They don't care if you're poor white. They look at you the same way they look at a poor indigenous person or a poor Mexican person. They do not care.
Let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Because America creates a whole bunch of billionaires. And I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the misconceptions we have about ourselves is that we are the minority. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by, and I mean not just minority, but by being childlike in the mind,
Right.
but minorities in numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we're creating too many billionaires for us. You can call it foundational blacks. I just call it
Mm-hmm.
indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to think of ourselves as only 13% of the population. In creating all these billionaires, how much reality do you think that is? That we're the minority?
Well, consider the fact that a lot of people that I know that I grew up with with white families, they have kept their family history. And a lot of those white people that think they're white are in fact indigenous. But because of the fact that the woman of the household couldn't have a baby, and the master of the household would sleep out in the slave quarters and have a baby, and then the mother would take the baby from the slave, and then that child would get raised as thinking they are white. A lot of people that have white skin are actually mixed race. So with
Is
that
that
being
now? Is that
said,
the one? Is that the one you can tell? Like a lot of people say, you can tell if they got the dark eyes and the dark hair.
yeah, yes. So a lot, in fact, a lady that I work with openly said, "Yeah, my great grandmother was as dark as you, but what happened in my family," and completed to tell me this story. So I decided to research it one day, and then I also had some other friends that told me the same thing. But what was the craziest thing that happened to me was I had a friend during that thing with Jimmy Carter. She was living here, and she informed me of a lot of information about so-called black people that Iranian people know.
Such
And
as
that was such as you, this is really your country, this is not their country. And that's, but they hide it from you. You probably have more what you say, more indigenous blood than what you think. You're not black. I mean, this is coming from her family. Her family, if you came over to my country, we would look at you in this way. We there are black Iranians, but you never see them.
when I uh when I got out of high school, uh, me and a friend said that you could join the military at the time, but it was a time when you could bring a friend.
Uh-huh.
If you and a friend joined the military, you can go anywhere in the world. So we both
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go to England.
Mm-hmm.
This shit is crazy. Do you know they had women over there going to pick up brothers from here just to have an indigenous baby?
Yes. You seen the video with the white woman talking to a black man, and she says, he asked her, "So why do you like black men?" And her exact words were, "Because I need my children to live. Because
Yeah.
I know that to live, you're going to need a certain amount of melanin on this planet,
Yes.
because I know that we're depleting. And so
Yes.
therefore, that's why I want to have my children by a black man. No other reason, because they
Yes.
don't respect you. They don't
Right.
respect, they do not, white women do not respect black men or indigenous men. They don't. They really don't. They look at you for your penis size. They don't care. They don't care about you.
And
They do.
brothers and
When they're
brothers.
married, when they're married and they get together with their white girlfriends, they talk about this stuff. They're very open about their sex lives, and they talk about this type of stuff. They don't care that you Jaquan from the slum Chicago. As long as they can get some of your seed, that's all that matters. And it goes the other way. It goes the other way around too. My stepdad told me that it has been said with amongst white men that you're not a real man as far as being a white man until you've slept with an indigenous or black woman.
Yeah, I heard that a lot too. Yeah.
So yeah.
So living this type of lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
growing up. What you say your last name was? Jerizrak.
Dietzig. Dietzig. DZIE, DZIC, Dietrich,
D. Say
ZIE, DZIC.
D-I. Wait, so one more time.
Okay, DZIE,
Hold up. Hold up.
DZIC. Yeah,
DZ.
DZ, Dietrich, Polish.
So you're a Polish African American.
Yeah, but I'm a Polish African American.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how would you view the world coming up with those shades on?
I was in for a rude awakening because I didn't see this. It didn't matter to me. I didn't see this because that was the ideology that I was brought up with from my stepfather. Um Along with his other negative attributes, but that part I didn't see that. So when he left and I got thrown back into the world of African Americans or Black people, it was a culture shock because of the fact that I talk this way. And when I was little, I was in California, so everything was like and oh my God, and because I grew up around the Valley girls and stuff. So when I got sent back to visit my dad for the summer, my indigenous father, and I ended up staying with my grandmother. And I was outside playing, outside. They're like, "Oh yeah, you." So I spoke, and all the kids got quiet. Why do you talk like that? I'm like, why do I talk like what? You know, you talk like you're white. I'm like, no, I don't. I talk like I'm me. No, you talk like you're white. You think you're better than us? No, I don't. I just want to play. Can I jump rope too? No, you talk like you're black. I mean, you don't talk like you're black. I didn't say but fixing, funna, whatever terms at that time were popular. I didn't use that. I talk like I do now. And it was a problem. So I got teased. In fact, I was coming home from school because my mom had went to Guatemala with her after my stepdad left. She got into another relationship with someone else, and she was going to Costa Rica. And on the way to Costa Rica, she got stopped in Guatemala when she was pregnant with my sister, and she got put in jail in Guatemala. And they took all their stuff and so forth. So I ended up having to stay with my grandmother during the time. So I got put into an all Black elementary school, and the kids would tease me because I was smart. And just in general, I like to read. I was a smart kid. And so when I got into school and the teacher would ask a question, I'd raise my hand because that's what you do when you answer a question. Or when there was a math problem, I'd volunteer to go up on the board. Well, I guess I thought I was better than everybody else. Not that I was intelligent, not that that should be embraced, not that should be looked at as being good, but I thought I was better than everybody else, apparently. So on my way home from school one day, 4 girls decided to jump me. My grandmother was down watching for me down the street because she would watch for me to come home and happened to see this. She didn't stop it, which I didn't understand at the time, but she didn't stop it. Another little boy that I played with stopped it. He was like, "No, you're not going to do this to her. She doesn't understand. She's not from here." So that's pretty much what stopped it. But when I got home, my grandmother said, next time some girls decide they want to jump you, I better see you fight. And I was like, fight? Why would I need to fight? Why were they hitting me? I didn't understand. So my grandmother sat down and talked to me. She said, they don't like little girls like you. And I was like, why? And she's like, because you come from a different place. You're different. You don't talk the same. You haven't had to go through the same things they've had to go through. She said, my grandma started letting me go over to their houses. And she would come home. She said, so how was it? I'd be like, they have bugs on their wall. And I'm like, she's like, yeah, those are roaches. Cause I didn't know. I didn't grow up in this environment. And so she started letting me go down to my uncle's house, who lived down the street, but it was a whole different night and day from my grandma's house because he had a whole bunch of kids and, and a wife, and he had used furniture on the porch. He fixed cars in the back. His house was basically the central for everybody to get the cars fixed, and just a junkyard but around his house. But it was fun to go down there. We could play in the fire hydrant and do all that stuff. But that, but she started letting me go down there and come home, and she would sit down and say, "So what happened today?" And she started educating me about where I was living, where I was, because we thought I was going to be there for a while. But in getting jumped by the other girls, it was because they thought that I thought I was better than them, and also because I talked differently. I had developed a bond with the teacher. The teacher would ask me to stay after school and would give me books and work on math problems with me because he was like, "You're a brilliant child." And this was also a white teacher teaching in a predominantly black school. But because the fact is that I showed interest in learning and I didn't have all of the issues that a lot of the other children had with at home and things going on that I now understand, he picked me out of everyone else and they felt slighted. So I got jumped. You there? Hello?
Yeah, I know. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in here. It's like the parents of these kids keep the minds locked in,
Yeah.
just so small where they don't grow. And
Right.
it's not the child, it's the parents.
Parents. Yeah.
Because I I know people 70 and 80 years old who are thinking how you're describing now. It's like they
Mm-hmm.
don't grow. Not, you on this planet for 70, 80 years, and you don't only know the shit that you learned 50 years ago. You learn
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. That's what I'm seeing with these so-called African Americans. They
Mm-hmm.
don't pass shit down to their kids, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
psychologically, how to be better, how to work together. They don't do that.
Right.
Wow.
And see, with my mom, and I understand my mom, and I thank her for it. My mom didn't want me to be, didn't want me to grow up that way, and I understand that. I mean, and I get why she took certain steps. Might not agree with some of the way that it went about and the things that happened in my childhood during that time, but I understand my mom's core reason for what she did, and I appreciate her for that because it got to let me see the world from a different point of view, and then coming back and into moving back into a predominantly indigenous area in the inner city as a young teenager growing into an adult living there. And I know because I went to high school. I even though I went to a Catholic high school, I still lived in a predominantly black area living with my father and dealing with my grandmother, and I have my children, married a man who joined the army, um not really understanding how many manic depressive people there are that are indigenous and how it affects the outcome of families. And because like my ex-husband ended up on crack. We had kids and it didn't matter. It was just like he ended up, that's the route he chose. And it had he been on the other side of the fence, I wonder if he would have taken that made that choice. And so we ended up divorcing, and I ended up being a single mom and having to raise my kids um without their dad, and going through situations that we put each other through. I mean, I had a home invasion. I got held at gunpoint and raped by another black man while I was pregnant. I mean, and these are things that we do to each other. And then we go, oh, no, no, it's them over there. But we inflict some horrific things upon each other. And we act like we don't. We act like we're bystanders. Or that's because of slavery, or that's because of that. No, it's because we don't want to take responsibility for our own shit and fix it. We want to brush everything underneath the rug and act like it doesn't happen. The damage that we do to each other is terrible. I mean, I understand that that there have been effects from land being taken, from the things that white people have done to indigenous people. I get that, and I understand that is not to be avoided. That is not to be discussed. But the things we do to each other, the things we say to each other, the way we treat each other, and then we want to have a kumbaya moment when a policeman kills a black person and act like that's the worst thing ever. But we set up the stage for this. We set the stage. We set the precedence for this, and then we have this thing where it's single mother's fault. She wouldn't be a single mother if you didn't leave. She wouldn't be a single mother if you didn't leave. We wouldn't be a single mother for you. I'm sorry, I'm gonna use a harsh term. If you just didn't decide, oh, I'm just gonna have sex with her for tonight, and she gets pregnant and or whatever. Okay, so what? And then then the male goes on and has a baby by somebody else, and then the woman has a baby by somebody else. But she's looked at as being a hoe. In fact, I remember a saying that my husband said that a guy with 100 girls on his jock is a hero, and a girl with 100 guys on her jock is a zero. That's very biased and sexist. But we embrace those type of patriarchal mindsets in our community, and we go, oh yeah, that's okay though. We create these monsters, we create the situation, and then we go, oh, it's not our fault. We want to blame somebody else. It is our fault because we're not taking responsibility for these actions. We're allowing it to happen. We're allowing someone to tell a little black girl she's ugly. We're allowing somebody to put a black girl in a freezer and take her body parts and while her friends watching her be raped, and that hasn't been forgotten. We're allowing someone to actually sit there and kill a woman and take a picture of her and put it on TV about she was alive. And I'm talking about Sandra Bland. We are allowing these things to happen. We're not standing up saying, nope, you're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. There was when I lived in Washington State, and I know I'm kind of flipping over, there was an indigenous man who got killed because he was deaf in one ear, and he held up a knife, and the police officer killed him. The whole community, they said, nope, that was a legitimate thing. The community said, oh, no, that fuck it wasn't. And they had to change the verdict on that. They made that police officer quit turning his gun and disappear. We refuse to band together and say, you're not going to do this to us. We just, oh, well, he probably deserved it. So what? Another nigga
Yeah,
gone.
yeah, that individual shit is not working. And
No, it's not.
we don't band together for nothing
No.
unless it's going to get drunk or something like that.
It's like we had this big million woman, million man march. What happened afterwards? What happened? We sit here, we have riots in the areas that we reside in, and we tear it down, but we don't own none of that shit. We don't own any of it. And it's like we're sitting there having a riot, or we're complaining about it, but we're doing nothing to fix it. Flint, Michigan has been without fresh water for how long? And we're like, oh well, I'm gonna go get some more Jordans. Oh well, so what?
Yeah.
I know this doesn't attribute to me growing up in white neighborhoods, but it's like we always want to make it seem like the white people's lives is so much better because they hide their shit very well, and our stuff is just all over publicly. We're recording each other we're recording someone stomping a 15-year-old girl, but nobody's fucking stopping it. We're recording shootings between black people or indigenous people, but nobody's saying, no, you're not gonna do that shit. But we got our phones up. We got our phones up. They're not recording. They're not recording their father raping their daughter. And putting it on social media. They keep their stuff hid. That's what I'm saying. They keep their stuff undercover and hid. If it happens to leak out, guess what? They end up dead or hanging themselves in a prison cell like Jeffrey Epstein, because they're not going to let their shit get out. We will broadcast our stuff all over the place, tell about what we did, put it on reality TV, and be proud of it. No, that part right there is not right. The mental anguish and damage that we cause each other, we need to look at and stop, open up the closet and start cleaning out those skeletons, start talking about it, because it goes back a long way.
Do you think that's one of the things that can be, and this is the way I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
That whole civil rights movement, kind of the things that we were brought up in with this integration,
Mm-hmm.
and being a certain way, and trying to get everything that they have, not building our own empires on our own land, not thinking like that. How much of that came out of that civil rights? You think, being on from both sides, how much of that integration, that whole civil rights thing, what did that do to the group as a whole?
Destroyed. It completely destroyed the morality that we once had. It's like, remember when you were little and you used to have the family get-togethers on Sundays, and everybody would come over for dinner, and you would sit down and everybody would have dinner, and you would at least spend time with your family. Holidays, the whole
Right,
family would be together.
right.
Does that, how many people can honestly say that that still happens? I mean, I know in some families it still does, because you have religion in there, so they all go to church together, and you got to have that unification, I guess. But in my family, once my grandmother passed away, it was like, what? Hang out with you? I don't even like you, type of stuff. So it changed. And it basically, I think that the precursor to integration in the civil rights movement was that, remember that video I showed you about the creating the black consumer?
Yes.
That was all in part of that plan, I believe, because
Oh
because
yeah.
in 1954 they're creating a video how to get the Negro consumer, and they called us the Negro at that time. So how to get the Negro consumer? They'll be faithful to your product if it's good. And then you go about 6 years in the 60s, and we start having the Martha Kings pop up, and the Medgar Evers, and the people who didn't get noticed, and like Claudette Colvin, who actually was the one who started the Montgomery boycott, but because she was pregnant, couldn't be a forefront. Um, but nonetheless, that started, and it was premeditated. All of that stuff was, I feel, was premeditated, because if I just say, here, let's put him in here and start this, and then we'll start integrating and making them think that they can live anywhere they want. We'll have to create a law to say they can move into a white neighborhood. But they forgot to mention to you that when you move into a white neighborhood, you make the property go down, the price, the appreciation, it depreciates when you move into that area. So technically, they don't want you there. That's why. So when you move next door to a white person and you buy a house, the property depreciates because they have a black person living there now. So therefore, this is a precursor, and so integration basically created more of an opportunity for them to take your money.
Yeah, that I, I live in one of those civil rights cities, and I
Mm-hmm.
always ask people, well, what did the civil rights produce for the so-called, black people? And they
Nothing.
all and they look at their shoes embarrassed, because I'm like, that was the biggest. Those people got played like hoes. That whole
Yeah,
civil
because
rights thing,
yep.
and
Because
and
before
people
then, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and people, they're like, oh, you just don't respect what your elders did. I'm like, but I mean, what did you do? I mean, and these are the people, like in that civil rights era. I'm like, and they still think it's cool. I'm like, you've seen this thing your whole life, and you still think it's cool. I'm like, it was a setup. You couldn't see that was a made for TV movie from the jump. And
My
they're like,
problem is they thought so much about the civil rights movement that when they were done using the so-called civil rights leaders, they killed them.
yeah, man. I
They killed them. They didn't care. They put a bullet in their head in front of their families. They shot them in their head, sent them to the hospital, and then killed them at the hospital. They took fathers away from their children. They took mothers away from their children. Lynching didn't stop. That didn't stop. And I mean, and something else that I want to mention too, that kind of throws me off, lynching. You know how they're going way back, and I'm sorry to go off subject, but this has bothered me for a long. They go way back and they bring up all these sexual allegations against all these people that happened 40 years ago. But yet not one indigenous person has came forward and said, oh, wait, hold on. Wait, can we charge these people for murder? Because you hung this person from this tree, castrated them, and burnt their body, and they've never been charged with a crime. Can we do that now? Can we go back and or open George Stinney's case because he was the youngest indigenous person executed in America, and didn't do anything? Can we open that case back again so his soul can be laid to rest? Because that was wrong. Is anybody going to step up to the plate? Are we going to dig that up again? Are we going to demand that be looked at? See, the confusion of everything going on right now and keeping us hating each other and going back and forth and niggas this and bitches that, and I don't like dark skinned women and I don't like dark skinned men and good hair, all of that confusion is preventing us from gathering our information and taking it to what they have called a world court. And if you go to the world court, you can't bring up religion. You got to bring up facts. And we got a whole bunch of facts. But because we refuse to come together and and form some type of solidarity and take our cases to this court, because that's how reparations would be gotten if they were to be given. If that's what you want, but or that's how you get someone to get off your land. But because of all this confusion that they have going on, and they know they got everybody confused, that'll never happen. So that way, will never be. That's how Japanese people got money for being bombed and for being bombed and being in concentration camps in America. That's how Jewish people got reparations from America and help from America, and also got refuge for Nazis and scientists that work with the government here. That's how all those things happen, because they presented their case, but they are not allowed to use religion because they know that religion is causes falsehood and false information. They know that. White people don't even go to church as much as you think they do. They put their kids in Catholic schools and stuff like that because they want them to get a better education, because they don't want them mixing with the lower class of people.
Is that why those people pay millions of dollars?
Yes.
Check this out. This is a teachable moment right here. And I want to use this for the audience that's listening on the chat. It's going to take me 1 minute. So we got a person named Ghetto Wisdom. And this is what they say. And this is what I want to dissect to show the rest of the people how fucked up we are in the mind. She is like 50 years old, just realizing who the devil is. Nah, she's an agent. So this is what somebody in the chat said.
I'm an agent?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Let me say this. And I'm gonna let you get it. But this is what I mean. This is the kind of shit that keeps us stuck. First of all, I want to ask, what you mean she's just realizing who the devil is? She was telling you that these cats, she knew at a young age that these cats was pedophiles. I mean, so you get the information wrong, or you didn't get it. Then you're making up this whole thing in your head that you know nothing about. Then you putting that bullshit out so everybody can see it and read it. That's what keeps us fucked up.
Okay.
God damn, dude or girl, whatever. Go ahead.
Please? Okay, I'm an agent. I'm definitely an agent. I'm definitely an agent. Let me elaborate how I'm an agent. I'm an agent because the fact is that nobody picks their time when they're gonna have privy to information, or when they're gonna wake up and start seeing the world for what it is. No one at all. And if I was an agent, all my kids, every single child I have is by another indigenous man. I have never mixed race with anybody. So I take offense to that, honestly, because I'm very proud to be who I am. I'm very proud of my skin color. I'm very proud of the people that I come from. Be them fucked up or whatever, they're still my people. And I will go to the ends of this planet to defend them. And I could be 50, I could be fucking 5 years old. That doesn't matter how old I am. But the point is that I've learned. The point is that I have knowledge to share. And the point is that I'm not going to hide behind anybody to do it. I have Black grandkids. I have a son right now. Since you want to talk about me being an agent, I was a single mom who was an African American who raised her kids in the inner city. And you know what that did for my kids? My oldest son is facing 86 years in prison right now for shooting up a house because some other nigga, and I said it that way, took his money from his kids. So he retaliated. Yeah, I'm an agent, all right. I have a son that's in prison right now that went to prison as an adult in the state of Wisconsin at 17. I reached out to the agent community for help to get my son out of prison, to help me to get him out of prison, to get him out of the situation because he attacked a white woman under the influence of some type of hallucinogen that they put in weed that he was smoking with other white kids. But I'm an agent though, right? I have seen every facet of racism that you could possibly imagine on this fucking planet. I have been raped by other Black men. My stepfather was a pedophile. I guess you didn't hear that part. He used to feel on me when I was a little girl. Until my mom found out. And when she started to find out, it was when he got sketchy and decided he was going to leave. And I'm a little girl. I didn't understand what was going on. I thought what he was doing was normal because he did it quite frequently. I did not know. But when it got brought to light, it changed real quick. When my dad, my real father, found out, he broke down and cried because my dad realized at that point that because of his heroin use and all that stuff that he missed out on my life. And he asked me for his forgiveness. So, bitch, nigga, whoever the hell you are, and I'm saying it that way, and I don't care if you take offense, I am no agent. I am a black woman in this country. I'm an indigenous woman in this country. My blood runs through Mississippi. My family runs through Mississippi. And if you think that I'm an agent, come see me. I'm in Live in Nevada. Come see me. You can look me up. I can tell you everything that I've done. I've been evicted because I didn't pay my rent. I have been in situations in home invasions, had a gun held to my head by another person who looked just like me. I have buried my son who was in a black daycare and she was going to hand me my son dead. So don't tell me I'm an agent, because I've dealt with all the bullshit that our community puts on to black women. And still I sit here and still will go to battle for my children who are black and myself and my community. And under no farceness, under no lies. I am not ashamed of who I am. And I am not ashamed to say what I say. And yep, I'm damn near 50. You better believe it. And that's why I'm able to stand on the ground that I'm on right now and say what I got to say. So no, I'm no agent. I'm not. You run my name. It's Nicole Allen. I was born September 6th, 1969, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Look me up.
You know, I didn't mean to, get you all riled up, but this is what I'm saying about in our community, the dumbness that
Of
goes
course.
through, especially with the males. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, god damn, you
Yeah.
always dumb. You never say the right thing. You don't know all that. You really don't know anything. So
And then you.
Here's a sister that's sharing some information with us that's showing us how the mental side is in our, in our midst. And then you just come with it, and it never fails.
Nope.
And so this is what I'm saying about because my message is mainly to, indigenous people in America, but
Mm-hmm.
especially to the indigenous male. You got to stop being a dumb fuck. I mean,
I mean,
damn.
it's like you have these grown men. You have these grown men walking around with their pants sagging, with their boxers hanging out, but yet you don't see any of the men who are older than these grown men or young men walking up to them saying, "Hey, bro, pull up your pants." That's not how men walk around. You don't, you have young women walking around with the breast hanging out and their stomach hanging out and all kinds of stuff. You don't have any older women saying, baby, yeah, come on, let's go shopping and get you something that will still accentuate your shape and make you look pretty, but you're not showing so much. They don't, that self-respect. We're not ready to take that back. We're not ready. That look is good. While you're sitting there criticizing me, how many times? How many times have you walked up to a young man and said, "Man, pull your pants up, bro. Pull your pants up." Men don't do that. We don't do that. You're making us look bad. Because if my son walks through the door with his pants sagging, which he will not do, because he knows better, I'm like, "Hey, where are you going? No, you're not going nowhere like that. What's wrong with you?" We don't want to do that, but you want to criticize or something, or say somebody's an agent or whatever your ideology is, which I really don't care, because you're not doing anything for me but criticizing me, and that's it. But at the end of the day, there's plenty of outreach programs and things that we could be creating to help our community and empower itself versus insulting it. For example, let's talk about hair weave. I'm going to probably piss a lot of people off about this, but have you ever sat down and studied where hair weave comes from? Do you know where it comes from? Do you even care where it comes from? Because there's these people who look just like me and you overseas in India, who shave their heads, and on their religious holiday they believe they're making this sacrifice so their life will be better. And these temples take the hair and they process it, and then they make it into all these different textures and all this other stuff, and then they send it to France and Korea and so forth and so on, and then it comes to us and we sew it in our hair and leave it in our hair. This is coming from poor, very, very, very poor people who don't even have plumbing. And so when they talk about racism, because that racism is basically the system that's created to hold a person down because of their ethnicity. It's not the fact. It's not. Oh, I don't like you because you're this ethnicity. It's a system that was created to keep you in a certain type of mental, physical, and spiritual bondage, so that way you cannot progress, and keep you there economically as well. So you don't think by buying hair from these people that look just like me and look like you, but they're across the seas, but they have a different texture hair, that you're not contributing to the downfall and the financial instability of this community, because they're not seeing any of that money. They're not, their community is not improving for that. They have to piss in the dark. I hate to say that. They have little kids who are drowning in latrines because they don't have running water or toilets. But that's none of my business. But then you're taking this hair, which a person in their heart is believing they're doing something good, and they're giving it to this temple, and the temple is turning it into something evil and vile. And then you're taking it and sewing it in your hair and walking around when you're losing your connection to your environment, to your ancestors. Your hair is your antenna, and you're covering it up. But we won't talk about that, though. But I'm an agent. I'm mad about that. I'm sorry. I'm an agent. That's fucked up.
You know, that's one of the things I noticed that we don't get into. We don't really get into the hair thing. And I
No.
think it's because really we're really fucking embarrassed by it. When I was a little boy, check. This is how powerful the hair thing is, and we don't really talk about it, and it's killing us. When I was a little boy, if you had a bald head, you got dogged out. When I was a little boy, if you had a bald head, everybody would slap you upside the head. When did these brothers start losing their hair? One of the things why I didn't think about it is when you get your hair cut. You getting your hair cut by a fucking razor that's been used by 100 motherfuckers before you. You running a razor over your head. You wearing these synthetic baseball caps that's covering up your brain and it's pulling your hair out. I mean, simple shit like that we don't see. And you don't even make the baseball caps.
Nope.
Sewing these weaves in your hair is covering up your hair. Your hair don't get no sunlight,
No air.
no
No
air,
oxygen.
no oxygen.
No.
And then you patting your hair because you got all these bugs rolling around. Are you what the really? Now these are grown ass people. These are
Yeah.
people. I got aunts who were in their damn 90s that wear that shit.
Yeah.
And you wondering why we tripping. Because
Have you ever smelled? Have you ever smelled white people's hair before? It smells like dog.
no,
But
I
we
don't.
want to. We want hair like that though. We want when I was little, we used to go swimming. Yeah, I used to go swimming with white people, the agent here. But when we used to go swimming and they would get out the pool, their hair would smell like dog. Wet hair, just like dog.
You leave my hair alone.
I,
So
you know what?
so listen, that's your crowd. So I'm saying,
Yeah.
listen, this is what I mean about the indigenous people to your hair. Let me give you my interpretation of it. Like the sister said, your hair is your antenna. You can pick up stuff. Your hair is very important. It's like leaves on a tree. You have hair damn near in every pore in your body. But the
Branches.
hair on your head plugs directly into your brain. The sun hits your brain first, your head first, sending that energy into your body. That's how we used to work it. We don't look at it like that now. We look at our hair as something ugly and fucked up and ugh. And how much the agents are making off of us attest to that fact. See, we don't want to talk about it because it hurts our feelings. But y'all better get
We
over
don't
that
want to
shit.
talk about the Asians making money off of the hair, but then being able to beat you, and when you go in the store and hit on you and spit on you and talk to you any kind of way when you go into the store to spend your money with them. But that's okay though. That's all right.
Nubian DNA just said Michael Jordan made the baldness popular. She's absolutely right. Or he's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Michael Jordan made the
Yep.
baldness popular. All the brothers I see today that's old, they still got a handful of hair. That baldness is so you won't get no energy. You won't connect to your environment. We don't understand that this oxygen we breathe. See, you used to live in a place where you breathe liquid oxygen. It
Mm-hmm.
used to be a mist over the whole eastern half, the South. You know, the South and all the eastern had a squirrel would travel from Florida to Canada without ever touching the ground. That's how many trees it was. That's a representation of you.
Mm-hmm.
You let people come in and cut all your trees down, which means all you follow what the trees are, because all we
Mm-hmm.
are human trees. And we don't teach nothing. We don't teach our children nothing how they're connected to the natural world. Nothing. And then when people like me bring it up, and I've been doing this for a minute, I get dogged. I get mocked. I mean,
Of course, because you think differently. I mean, if you think differently, or if you at one time were a part of a different society. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't my fault that I grew up in the areas that I grew up in. That was the choice of my mother because she was my matriarch. I was her responsibility. So she did the best that she could, and or what she thought was the best that she could at that time. And that doesn't mean that doesn't take away my blood. That doesn't take away the fact that I'm my blood type is O, which is most of us, and that is bound to the land.
yes. Let me answer a couple of questions in the chat, because I don't want to leave them out because they coming up with some cool shit. Dominic says, "Do you think that the Hebrew Israelites are they a cult? The Hebrew Israelites should be in Hebrew land or Israel somewhere." So somebody over here talking to you about some foreign shit, they're here to trick and pimp your stupid ass.
But the
Uh,
Hebrew Israelites was started by a white man.
Simple stuff like that you should find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Uh, and ghetto wisdom, cuz really, you're showing that you're ghetto because you're not thinking. You're just saying stuff, and we're picking that up now. You just say stuff and you don't know what you're talking about. So we're gonna leave you on. Let you go. The struggle is here in Los Angeles. This is Dupree Lattimore. Dupree Lattimore, I was born in Los Angeles. Trust me. When my mother used to take me to the beach as a kid, the Pacific Ocean was blue. It was a cool blue, nice blue. Go all day long, hang out at the beach. You go to the beaches in LA now, the water looks like shit water. I know
Yeah,
the
it's very
struggle.
murky.
I know the struggle is
Mm-hmm.
real as in LA, and being a native of LA. Listen, homie, good luck to you. I know what they're doing to the Negro out there. Being that they're in their Hollywood mindset, many is going to go down with the ship. This is what I would suggest simply to everyone. Find out who your people are and go back to those towns where they're from and build up that land. I think would be a win-win for everybody. And we'll
I
talk
mean,
about
and
that later.
yeah, I agree. I mean, because even with that being said, you can grab the tax lien list of from where your people are from, and you can start investing that way too. Because I'm big on investing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Instead of looking at ourselves as individual people, damn,
Yeah.
you got brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews and nieces and great aunts and great uncles all over this place. Find your people. Get back on your land. I just got a post today where they said uh, they're taking the national parks and the state parks. If you know anything about if you read about what your people did and what they were leaving to you, those national parks and those state parks, they're yours. In case something happens, they're yours. That's where you can go live. We don't even look at it like that. These people are taking what you own, what your people have passed down to you, and making state parks and national parks and making millions of dollars off of it. And you don't even think about it. You don't
I
even
mean, like
care.
right to like Central Park in New York was once a predominantly very wealthy indigenous town. They took it in
No,
Central Park.
no, no.
Yeah.
We see the information. We know all we're doing, Nicole. All we're doing is reminding.
Yeah.
These Negroes know it. These
Yeah.
Negroes know. They know. They know. Negroes know African American ain't African, but they have invested so much into this bullshit that they got to keep going because they done told that lie so long. It'll be like Umar Johnson coming out and saying, "You know what, man? We not Africans." That would really trip people out because that's all he's been pushing.
Yeah, and telling someone that they could give $20 instead of 10.
Baby, you know, baby, this out of Pim's rolling, baby. You got to get me my money. Listen, one last thing before we get out of here, I want to talk about because
Uh,
this is the main thing that goes on in our community, and this is the day for it. That religious indoctrination. Could you tell us about how that had an impact on your life? You know, growing up and seeing how these people were that whole religious indoctrination.
I got the privilege of going to Catholic schools, private Catholic schools, because my grandmother had decided when her children were younger that and pre like Martin Luther King, I guess, John F. Kennedy, because you know how everybody's grandma had, I don't know, maybe it was just mine, but my grandma had a an altar of Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy in her home. And so before I was born, we became Catholic from being Baptist, Southern Baptist. And in fact, I was baptized at a church in Wisconsin called St. Benedict's, which happened to be one of the only Black popes a long time ago, but that's here or there. And so I got to go to Catholic schools. I went to a Catholic high school when I got sent back with my dad in Wisconsin. And while going to a Catholic school, I got to hang around once again with kids, and like a lot of the girls were pregnant, and what their parents would do was they were wealthier, but they had got pregnant during the time of being in high school. Their parents would make them go through the pregnancy because Catholics don't believe in abortion, and then they would put the baby for adoption with another white family. There was also a level of the school that you would go up to, and that's where the kids would do all their drugs. They would bring like at that time it was called MDA. It was like it's basically acid, and they used to do shrooms, all kinds of stuff at the school. But basically, the religious indoctrination to that was watching how the priest acted with the children. Like there were priests, the altar boys and stuff like that. That stuff happens. They have their pick of children or boys and the nuns girls, and that they would have relations with. In fact, one of the priests at the school got in trouble for having a relationship with a girl who he got pregnant. So that went back and forth and on and on. And it's just like, the Black Catholic population was not that big, but it was big enough to have a congregation where in Wisconsin. And so basically by being indoctrinated into it, you would take on Catholic beliefs. And that was worshiping Mary instead of, Jesus wasn't the thing, it was the Mother Magdalene. And so by doing that, you learned a lot about the Catholic Church, which is very seedy, and you learned a lot about King James, who was a pedophile, homosexual deviant, who basically made the priest and the nuns, before the Catholic Church became real powerful, he made them sign over their property. So that's how the Catholic Church got a lot of their money. So basically, they were it's like a cult. And it's funny because they had a class called religion in high school, and they taught you about all the different cults and religion. Like we learned about Hare Krishnas, and we went on a field trip to the Hare Krishna temple in Chicago. They looked at the Nation of Islam as being a cult, not a religion, because they said that Islam is a different sect than Muslim. They basically encapsulated every other religion except for being Catholic. Being Catholic was the top religion, the oldest religion, so forth and so on. But the deviant things that they do behind closed doors truly exist. They have some very different ways. They have some very they over sexualize people, and within the Catholic Church too, the way they view indigenous women is over sexualizing them. um you don't get any inclusion in the Catholic
When
religion
you
at
say
all.
when you say over sexualizing the indigenous woman, could you elaborate on that?
What I mean by that is that the ideologies from sleeping with Black women, white men, and Black women comes through Catholic Church, because they believe even though in Rome, in the Vatican, the pictures and the statues of Mary are Black. So they hold the Black woman in a high regard in that aspect, but they don't hold her in a high regard in regards to actual society. They are basically the reason why they have a big issue, reason why society is the way it is, and the ideas of how Black women are voluptuous or sinful, or their body shapes are enticing, or their sins and so forth. They encapsulate that into the ideologies. So basically, like a voluptuous Black girl who's developed, because we develop kind of a little bit faster, is looked at as being as having to do 12 Hail Marys because she's fast. So they kind of take that instead of explaining it to you that you're going through puberty and all that thing, that they put it off on religion and make you feel guilty for the way you look and the way that you developed.
Let me ask you a question. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the things that I find interesting. Do you think that we look at time in the same way they look at time? So you see how a sister that's 60, she can pass for 30. I have seen sisters that are 60 years old. If you ask me how old they were, I'd say 40,
Mm-hmm.
because of the time, and how do we, we're different species of people,
Mm-hmm.
but we look at ourselves, we count ourselves according to their time. And when you look at other nations around the world, like China doesn't look at time the same way Rome does.
Uh-huh.
India doesn't look at time the same way as Rome does.
Right.
Certain parts of the world, people have their own calculations of time according to their history and their experience. Do you think that us taking on their time, well, I don't know what I'll come up, their time matrix, or their time space continuum, do you think that us looking at time through their eyes, what do you think that does to us as far as aging and so forth?
I think that with certain people, it causes them to age faster, because along with the time continuum, you're trying to perform the rituals that they perform, like wearing a lot of makeup and keeping, in the hair weaving and the diet too. And so I think that that's all incorporated into the time continuum as well. Because if you are eating, McDonald's every day, and you're getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and your first place that you go to is to go get an egg, bacon, and cheese McMuffin, you're adding or you're adding bad habits to yourself, but you're taking away your time in regards to life. So I think that both go hand in hand in a way. I hope I'm explaining this kind of right, because you're not following your diet by nature. You're not following your rituals by nature because you don't know them. So you're incorporating them into your life. And so I think by doing that, you're causing yourself to age much faster than you would if you were more plant-based and following your own indigenous diet. Hope I said that right.
No, you said it right. And matter of
Okay.
fact, I think you said it so simple. And I think that's one of the things that when we try to speak to each other, we try to confuse each other.
Hmm.
Oh, last question before we leave, and this is
Uh-huh.
important. And since I woke up to you telling me this is very important. And this is what I mean about us looking at time in our point of view.
Hmm.
When I woke up, you told me, this is the first thing you said. It's a full moon.
Hmm.
Tell us, how can we, in getting back to our time space continuum, looking
Hmm.
at the phases of the moon and the way the seasons transpire and the way they just tricked us on this, how they do this hour front, hour back, that's
Hmm.
showing us man trying to control time. Could you share with us your thoughts about that?
Well, do you feel any differently today because the time change? Does your body feel any differently?
No.
But the moon being full causes causes you to feel differently. Like some people will be very sleepy on a full moon. People's behaviors, it will change, especially I live in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and on a full moon, people's behaviors change. The behaviors that some people become more aggressive, some people become more relaxed, some people are sleepy, some people are out sitting in the moonlight washing, like I like crystals, so I wash my crystals and I burn sage and I do the affirmations and I do little things around my house because of the full moon, because it's a new start to a new time. So basically, the time when you get to the full moon, and then as the moon starts to deplete, the time is changing. So every month we have this regeneration, in my opinion, of time. So the full moon, I kind of think, causes some people to feel more in tune with our surroundings. For me, like today, I came home from work, and it was funny that you mentioned it, because with me being in the grow today, I noticed the plants were acting a little differently. My plants were standing up. They were standing up, and they had drank all the water we had given them, so we had to rewater them again. But they were very alert and perky and stuff like this, because the plants even knew it's going to be a full moon. It's tomorrow when I go. Tomorrow is the harvest day that we cut the plants down and we start getting them ready for flower. But it's just like, the only thing that I can say is that with the full moon is that I don't want to go anywhere. I want to just sit down and relax and kind of take a moment for myself. And I think that for me, with the full moon being that way, and knowing that the full moon is here, is that's kind of a regeneration that you get on a monthly basis, to kind of take a moment for yourself and kind of bask in the moonlight in a sense, and kind of follow through. I mean, it's like, I don't know what the rituals of the Choctaw were on a full moon, and I've been kind of trying to research some of that. But I do know that the way that I feel with the full moon, the time going forward, the time going back, that doesn't change anything for me, because either way, I have to get up. I have to get up. I have things to do. So that part, I don't when people say, "Oh, the time change, I'm missing an hour of sleep." No, you're not. You really aren't, because nothing. The moon isn't gonna go, "Well, I'm not gonna come out right now because they put me an hour back." It has no idea of the man-made time strains. It has no idea. The plants have no idea that, oh well, it's an hour later. I don't have to open up right now. They don't know that. Only people that know that is man, and that's only because of the fact that they've created that.
That's a cold way to put it, because I didn't think of it like that. And that's a good idea. But this is
Mm-hmm.
so I had a colodic today, and this a full moon. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can see now, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get into the time cycle of the planet.
Right. Right.
And the moon, I've been paying attention to that. That's important. I think that's something that we don't incorporate
Mm-hmm.
into or pay attention to, the natural wonders that go on around us. We're not into the
Mm-hmm.
full moon. We're not into the quarter moon. We're not into what happens, the planet effect on us. We're really not
Mm-hmm.
into that.
Into
We're
it.
into
Nope.
all that glitters.
And then it's crazy because I do know that the sage burning is an indigenous thing. I know that I know that from my grandmothers and from my mom. And so my grandmother always burnt sage around the house on a full moon. And with that being said, I burned my sage today. And my sister was like, "Are you burning your sage?" Because she's like, "Clear the energy, clear and she's all into the metro, all the retrograde and all that stuff like that. But she's like, "And clean your crystals," because I have them around my house. And it's just interesting how I burn the sage and all stuff like that, and you kind of do a regeneration thing with the moon. And as you notice the moon like becomes smaller and smaller, you also notice people's demeanor changing too, because we are in cycle with the moon and the sun. And there's an app on that you can download on the phone, and I can't remember them, but it shows you when the moon cycles. So it's like a virtual like farmer's almanac type thing. So it shows you the moons, like tonight, people who go fishing. Tonight's a good fishing night. Yeah, I remember because my grandmother used to go catch catfish and crappies and all that stuff on full moons and come home with tons of fish. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
everything reacts to it.
I think that's one thing, everybody. And check this out.
Yeah.
Please check out the No Grandma Killers tour coming to Atlanta. New Year, April 4th, that weekend. Go to nograndmakillers.com. beautiful sister Phoenix Moon is putting together something. Indigenous people, they're going to be showing you how to do the genealogy, how to find your folks. And listen, we got to return ourselves back to the land, back to earth, back to natural ways of living, or we're doomed because we've been trying this fake shit for the past 200 years and it don't work. And
No,
us keep
it's not.
trying to act and us keep trying to act like it works and Jesus gonna save us, all that bullshit. It's not working, y'all.
No.
You're gonna have to get back to what rooted you here. That's your mama. Your umbilical cord is rooted to your mama. Your mama's rooted to the earth. I mean, simple shit like this should let us know what's up. And we refuse to look at life like this. So, Nicole, give us your last words so we can close down. But give us some wisdom getting out of here.
I here's my wisdom. Look into investing in the cannabis industry. Research cannabis for medicinal uses. Instead of taking that sleeping pill like Ambient, eat an edible. It'll help you sleep better and you won't have any side effects on your body. Start eating right. Let go of beef and pork. And you eat a little bit of chicken here and there, okay, and it's not even the best, but start getting back to your roots when it comes to your diet, because that'll change everything about you. Every single thing about you will change. I used to eat steaks and all that stuff like that. I don't eat none of that anymore. And it's like it changes your whole perspective of everything. Your food and your diet have a lot to do with the way you think. The hormones and stuff that are in food are basically what's causing a lot of the poisons that are going on in your mind, the ADHD, all that stuff like that. And anybody who wants to say or ask me about me being an agent, please let me know. My email is infusedvirgo@gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line. We can discuss that even further because now I find it funny. But you guys, listen to him. I've learned a lot from the Indigenous one as well as people who's had on the show. He's on a path for empowerment, and we need to support him. And that's my words of wisdom. And don't think the grass is green on the other side, because it's not. Believe me, there's a whole bunch of sick and twisted shit that goes on behind closed doors. They just don't put it on the forefront like we do. We need to develop some pride about ourselves and start carrying ourselves that way.
Nicole, thank you. And she's gonna be back, y'all, because like I'm saying, this is what we need. This is what I'm trying to get out. Voices who have some intelligence can pass to our people because I don't know everything. And you got some brothers and sisters out there who have not walked in my shoes, and I have not walked in their shoes, and we all experience the same bullshit. So I just wanted to share this sister with you, and I share this sister with you because she has stuff that can change the way a person sees stuff because she suffered through it. She went through it, and many of us haven't got to there yet. So she can warn us about what we think is cool. It ain't cool. It's
No,
not
it's
cool at
not.
all. It's not cool at all. So we thinking we got it going on, and I got this because I got an alligator person, all this other dumb shit that we believe in. Find who your folks are. And this is what I say. I don't get into the find out who your people's name and all that. Like this sister said, her people's from Mississippi. Go to Mississippi where your people spring from. Walk where they walked. Eat the food that they ate. Pick up the herbs. Go there and pick up the herbs where they're from, and connect to your people. I mean, come on, y'all. This is I shouldn't even have to be telling you. This shit should be taught to us when we're 4 and 5 years old.
And stop being so critical of people who look like you. That kills me. Like, stop being so critical of people who look like you. You can't. I mean, there's always a saying, all skin folk and kinfolk. That should not be. That saying should not exist, because we are all in this together. We should not have any type of divide amongst ourselves. It shouldn't matter if you're light. It shouldn't matter if you're as dark can get. That's irrelevant. We are all under some type of persecution, whether you want to see it or not. We are, and we need to stop that shit, because they're taking everything right from underneath our feet. I mean, it's just alone with being a grower in the cannabis industry. I'm learning how to grow from a man who's from Uruguay.
Uruguay. How close
Not
is that? How close is that to the equator? See, those are places we should be going.
Yeah,
Uruguay, Paraguay.
Uruguay. Yep.
I'm
And like,
going to Egypt, nigga. Fuck you. I can do what I want to do.
yeah, I mean, it's like everybody's rushing to go to Ghana. And don't get me wrong, I would love to go to Africa. I would like to see it. I really would. It's just something that I would like to see. I wouldn't want to live there, but I want to see it. But I've been to Honduras. I've been to Costa Rica. I have been to Venezuela and Colombia, and they're beautiful places. And if we took our money that we have and invested in Venezuela and places like that, the soil is so rich. They have growth facilities that I know because I have a friend who's down there right now in Colombia who's growing for a company in Canada. I mean, it's like this is all our land. I have, in fact, if I can find it, I'll put it on the thing. I have a picture where I'm standing next to the Mayan ruins as a little girl. But yeah, so that was because of my mom. My mom took me there, and in fact, when I went down there, some of the people I had picked up Spanish quickly. I was 3, so I was translating for my mom because she wasn't picking up as fast, and it was like I was able to translate. And there are so many people who look like us in Central and South America that they don't show you, but they live. You have the Garfuna who live in Honduras. That's who Dr. Sebi was part of. You have the Brazilians who look just like us. You have the Uruguayans, the Afro-Argentinians, the Puerto Rico alone. If we took our money and invested in on this side of the planet, it would behoove us to do so because the soil is very rich and we could own it. But we're just sitting there looking at it like, oh well, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go to McDonald's or do whatever we want to do with our money instead of using it and pulling it together. They're pulling their resources together and they're taking everything from us. I see it every day. And they have grants and stuff. They want us to step forward and say, hey, you want it, but you got to work to get it. They want us to work to get it back. But most of us don't want to work together to do so. And we need to work together. We need to create investment groups. We need to create 100 indigenous men groups to go out and mentor young men and young women. Because, parents, I'm sorry, being a single parent, and I'm going to say this and I'll let you go, being a single parent is hard. Whether it's blaming or whatever the case you want to do, it's hard. And if you don't feel like you have any community support, it makes it harder. And then you got people talking about it's your fault. Well, if you're so concerned about the fault of the person, then help the person instead of judging them. We got so many judges here. We got so many Indians and no chiefs. We need to change that. That mentality is going to be our downfall. And then we're going to end up over someplace else where we don't even know nothing about it.
Nicole, thank you
You're welcome.
for sharing with us tonight. In the words of Gretchen Holmes, I got to read this to you. Because this is what we got to do. This is what Gretchen Holmes says, and this is simple. This is some shit we can do. Love on each other.
Exactly.
Love on each other. Listen, menticide, taking a person's mental, changing their whole mental ideology to make them hate themselves. That's menticide. And those of us who are strong enough, we're going to have to change that. And whatever they put in front of your face, I don't care if it's that homosexuality, all that devil worship, all that stupid shit that they show us, we got to be better people than that. We have to be who we are. And
True.
one of the reasons people come here over you is because they want to be you, because you're always right. Because the world is so twisted. And the whole purpose of them being is to get us twisted like them so they can take over the world. And if that happens, and we won't let that happen, we can't let that happen. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I want to thank the beautiful sister for giving us some information and wisdom because, like I say, I don't have it all. If any of you have some things that you want to share with us that the greater community should hear, please contact me and interview you too. Because this is a sister trying to make a way for not just her children, her grandchildren, but all of us. And that's how we got to start looking at our women. Women are what we come from. No man enters this planet unless he comes through a woman. That should tell us something. But brothers, we cut that off. We kill that. And then we want some cool shit to happen for us. We want to go to Jesus for some reality.
You
Love
know,
them.
I hate to interrupt, and I'm gonna say something. You guys, if you get a chance and you do follow religion, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but research the Council of Nicaea and the age of the letter J, and then start asking questions.
Okay, well, you won't condemn religion, but I will. It's some bullshit. And if anybody
It
can prove to
is.
me, yeah.
It is. It is. It is. It really is. It's in caused a lot of problems within our communities. Really, we think it's a good thing. It's not. We always want to talk about pray to Jesus, but it's your own energy that is causing the positive results. It's you activating yourself because you're believing in something so intensely that you're causing the end result. It has nothing to do with Jesus.
Can I get a witness? Like a
Amen.
like a great man once told me one time, and this is to all the listeners. Why would I call another man God without first looking to myself? You guys have a
And
good night.
you guys too. I was gonna say something else, but go. Let's go. I'm
No,
going to
no,
bed.
Finn, go, baby, go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say is, growing up and being so confused as a young adult and a child, it really hindered me from knowing a lot of things and knowing people. And it's like I hate the fact that I missed out on so many things culturally because I didn't get to experience a lot of things. Like the first time I saw Cooley High, I was grown. I was like, what? And it was amazing because I didn't grow up. I grew up seeing things like the Breakfast Club and bland things that had no soul to them. I didn't grow up listening to the Isley Brothers and all of that. I started hearing that stuff once I started coming more around my family, and they started teaching me these things because I was living on the other side of the fence.
Hold on,
I
hold
think
on,
it's
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on. You didn't get the Isley brothers till you was older?
no older.
What?
Older. I listened to Jim Croce, and I could tell you all about white music. Jim Croce, America,
And
Sweet
he's
Dog Night,
bad
yeah,
Leroy Brown, the
yeah,
baddest man in the
yeah. The
whole damn
biggest midnight
town.
revival. I get you. You put me on a trivia show about some old white music. The Beatles, the Monkees. I could tell you all of that.
The
Because
monkeys.
it's here. But see, but what it did for me by me being in that society is I can look and see. I can kind of comprehend their behavior. I can kind of comprehend why they do the things that they do. I kind of comprehend what they listen to and their next action. And it's funny because the one of the people I work with says, you always know what I'm going to say. I said, yeah, because I've been around you pretty much most of my life. Kind of know you. And I know when you get ready to do something shady too, and I'm gonna get out your way because you're not doing it to me. So
Okay,
it's just like I appreciate. Yeah. Hmm?
okay. This is just one question
Yeah.
because this is child abuse. If you didn't get that, I know you was listening to all the white music, but did you
Yeah.
happen to get some Parliament Funkadelic while you was in there?
Oh, when I used to come back in the summer to visit my grandmother and my uncles, oh hell yeah. Oh, and Chaka Khan, because Chaka Khan was, Rufus, and my mom liked Chaka Khan, and my mom liked Diana Ross because, I don't know what reason my mom liked Diana Ross, but I guess it had something to do with who she was married to or whatever. So the popular black people that were popular among white people in music, I kind of got privy to. But like the Parliaments and stuff like that, I got in Rick James, which when I saw his album cover, I remember I was like 7. I was like, oh my God, look at his hair. And my uncle laughed till he peed on himself, I think, because he was just so amazed at the fact that I was so enthralled by Rick James. I was just like, who is this? And I just made him play the album over and over again. But that was my indoctrination into my black family. And then I got to learn about the things that happened to my grandmother when she was down south, and my great grandma. My great grandma shared the same story as the Reese Taylor story that Oprah Winfrey used. She got raped and left on the train tracks for dead. And I had an uncle that was lynched, and I got those stories, and that started waking me up into becoming who I am today, and still growing.
Well, Nicole, please come back and talk to us because it's always good to have intelligent folks
I appreciate it.
conversating.
Even though, even though I'm an agent,
Okay, well, listen. Before you go, this is what I
yeah.
want to share with the people who's looking at you. If you look at this sister's face, I mean, come on, y'all. She's not black. She's red. She's red. She's red, and that's how this. Then that's why I say this TV is MK Ultra, because whatever it says, you believe whatever it says.
Hmm.
She's not black. She's red. Look at her. She like the red clay down in Mississippi. And this is what I'm saying. You can see something, but you'll believe it's something else. And this is what we trying to get you at African Americans and Africans to see. You are not what they say you are. You are what is. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.